Our special guest right now is Angela Persicke. She is the Assistant Director of the Autism Research Group, and we've asked her to come in. She's going to be coming in on a regular basis now, and we asked her this week, on the air last week, we asked her if she would come in and talk with us about toileting, because you said something last week that I thought was life-changing, earth-shattering. You were talking about talking with a group of parents and a question and answer forum, and that they asked a lot of questions about toileting, and how great it was that they were asking the questions, because that's something that, and with all confidence, you sat there and said, because we know we can do this.
Yep.
This is something that we totally can take on, and it doesn't have to be a big deal, and we know that we can help all of our kids with this. And then you said it with such confidence that I just loved it and said, oh, we got to do a whole segment on this, because I think there are a lot of our viewers who don't view it that way.
Yes, and that's what I realized by talking to the parenting group as well, is that they had so many questions about it, and that's why I was so surprised, because we deal with this every day with every single case, and it's not one of our biggest challenges.
And that is a lovely thing to hear, because for people at home, it's probably in those top 5 things, if you don't have it, that you're longing for and wanting to target, and if you don't have it, it seems insurmountable, like raising $1 million. Like, how on earth can we possibly do this? And to hear somebody say, oh, that's not a problem at all, is great. So tell us, obviously there's been a great deal of research done on this, and you guys have been doing this for a long period of time. So tell us what the secret is.
Okay, well, first to start off, this has been researched all the way back into the 70s. So, and some of the studies that came out showing that they can do this within a day was like 74, 72, 74.
Okay, so, is that research with typical kids or?
No, with individuals with developmental disabilities, and they had adults and children as well.
Okay.
And the big names for that, Azrin and Fox, they conducted most of these studies back in the 70s. So, and we use the same procedures to this day.
So this is not a new toy.
Nope.
This has been around for a while. Azrin and Fox. Okay, and if somebody wants to look at the actual studies, they can write to us and we can put them in touch with where to find those studies. Okay, fabulous. And there have been books written on these subjects, Azrin and Fox.
Azrin and Fox wrote a book, and it actually states on the cover, effective toilet training in less than a day. So.
Okay, in less than a day. All right. It seems like crazy talk, but let's but let's be crazy. Let's walk down crazy for a while. Okay. So what are the main things that we need to know? Okay.
Well, very first, you want to dedicate a whole day or a couple days to this. So do not start it during school when they have a lot of activities, anything like that. You need to dedicate your whole day or weekend to this.
Okay.
So,
like planning a vacation, you're going to put it on the calendar.
Exactly.
And you're not going to allow anything to interfere with that. That's just, for all intents and purposes, for other people, you're out of town. You're not going to a party that night.
Nope.
You're not flying to your niece's wedding.
Nope.
You're taking on toileting and
all day.
3 days?
Yes, about 3 days is probably the max. For some individuals it may be a little more difficult, but consistency, it's all about consistency. And if you dedicate a whole day or 2 or 3 to this, it will work.
Okay. So kind of think of it as potty boot camp.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, so you've marked it off on the schedule, said we're clearing the decks. You're going to go to the grocery store ahead of time. You're going to rented videos or whatever, so you're not having to run out to the Red Box. You've got enough stuff so you don't have to be anywhere. You're going to deal with this.
Yes.
All right. Do we need to have any special tools?
No special tools. You need to get rid of the diapers for those days too. And I know that's the scariest thing.
Yeah, jumping off the cliff.
That's the scariest thing. But we'll talk about the procedure in a minute, and you'll see why taking off the diapers is so important.
Okay.
And also, the diapers prevent, the wetness and the feeling and everything like that. So there's no natural consequences if the child does have an accident.
Right.
So the way we do it, we make it so really no accidents are going to happen.
Okay.
But do be prepared for that, of course.
Right.
But it's not going to be accident after accident.
Okay. So a couple of points of clarification, though. We're saying get rid of the diapers, although you're not... totally getting rid of them because you want them at night for a little while, right?
Definitely.
Okay. But I think, great symbolic move is move them someplace where they're not. A lot of times, the diapers are right where the kids can see them all the time, and there's an expectation there. But put them someplace else if they have to be in a drawer so that it's a part of the pajama putting on, right? But just not there. I have a frog, sorry. Okay, and then also because you are, we're going to try to avoid the accidents as much as possible, so maybe on the list of things to have, make sure that you have laundry soap that's there, although we're going to try to minimize that. But that's on your list of things to have around the house so that you don't have to run out to the store to get
clothes. Probably use, some clothing that's not brand new.
Right.
Have them in some sweats or pajamas or whatever it is.
And you got to have some big girl or big boy underwear.
Yes, definitely.
So that's one of the things that you got to have on your to-do list before. And I would imagine that getting cool big boy underwear or big girl underwear that maybe even the child had a choice in might be beneficial. All right.
And for the bathroom, if the bathroom is causing any anxiety for the child, because I know that there are some children that are afraid of the toilet.
Yeah.
Put up posters, have a DVD player in there that they get to watch only in the bathroom. Anything fun, make it part of the bathroom experience.
Party central in the bathroom. I love the idea of posters. That never occurred to me. But we at the time when Jen was going through this, we borrowed a portable DVD player from somebody. I know they're not as much around anymore because people are using devices and things.
Phones.
But somebody might have some, or you charge your phones and have them ready so that. But we had a little portable DVD player and had a disc that had little short cartoons on it that he loved. That made the bathroom party, and that was the only place that video player was.
That's the next thing I wanted to say. Whatever is most reinforcing for the child, so they're highly reinforced item or snack. A lot of times we'll use snacks like candy because kids don't get a lot of candy. And so candy or ice cream, anything that's like their favorite thing in the world, that will be only for potty time.
Right.
And only for doing the correct potty routine.
Right.
So DVD with if it's a favorite movie, that will only be played while he's in the bathroom.
Right. And this is a great time when we're working on something like this to let, you might have a rule like there's no eating in the bathroom. I think most people have that rule, right? You're going to let that fly for this. You're going to change the circumstances because we're going to make it really reinforcing. It may not be that, none of us want to have DVD players and TVs and phones and things like that in the bathroom on a regular basis. But for this, we're going to make allowances and say, hey, we're pulling out the big guns, making this place reinforcing.
Yes.
It's not forever.
No.
And we're not going to constantly give a piece of candy to the child for doing the proper toileting. We can do this for a short period of time to get the job done. We're getting the job done. Okay.
And the way we're looking at it is just 1 to 3 days of really reinforcing, and then you start fading it out. So, and we'll talk about that more towards the end.
Absolutely.
The next thing you want to do if your child is verbal, is if he has language, or if he doesn't, you need something to indicate that is what is happening. So a card with a toilet on it, like a picture exchange type of card. Or the sign for potty in
which I
sign
don't know
language.
what that is.
I believe it's this.
Oh, that's a little P? Okay.
So that, or anything your child can do to indicate that's what needs to happen, and you want to practice before taking them to the toilet, having them do that or grab the pitcher or say potty. And initially you're going to start with about every 10 to 15 minutes taking them to the toilet. and you'll take them to the toilet, have them go through the whole toileting routine, pulling down their pants, sitting down or standing up, whatever you prefer at first. And then you are going to have them sit or stand there for about 5 minutes.
Okay. Really important to have a timer.
Yes, timing.
I could not have done this without a timer.
No.
Because if it had been up to me, I would have gotten fuzzy with it. And you don't want fuzzy at all with this. You want to be really, so timer.
A timer is very important. Set it for every 15 minutes, and then 5 minutes of having them on the toilet in the bathroom. Pushing liquids is very important as well. You want them to be drinking way more than they normally would. So have juice boxes, more exciting drinks than just water. Anything that will allow them to drink more, and then of course urinate more often.
And even to the point of having them eat something salty so that they will be more likely to want to drink more stuff. Okay.
Exactly.
So our list of things to go shopping for is growing, salty snacks, juice boxes, bottled water kind of thing, but some kind of, snappy-do liquids that's going to elevate it a little bit more. But I'm wondering, Angela, like some of this you could kind of do beforehand too. Like couldn't you be working on the potty thing before your 3-day?
Exactly.
And or pointing to the picture or making the bathroom so that it's a really cool place. That could even happen beforehand.
Exactly. And if you have a child who has difficulty maybe undressing or dressing, that can be worked on ahead of time as well. Pulling down the pants, pulling up the pants, buttoning, fastening, anything like that can be worked on ahead of time. Of course, hand washing. These are all more complex behaviors. We call them behavior chains because they involve a bunch of small behaviors chained together to form the whole routine. So washing hands isn't just one small behavior. You have to turn on the water and get the soap and rub your hands together, etc. So they're all behavior chains, and you can work on those individually beforehand, so that the child is proficient in some of the other component behaviors before you do the actual pottying.
Okay. And let's imagine for a moment, though, that you don't have those things on board, but you're ready to take the 3 days. You got 3 days that are convenient. You're really excited about doing the potty. You could work on the potting and just motor them through the washing hands and do that later on, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It's whatever works best for you. If you have only this 3-day weekend that you can focus on this, and for the next 6 months you're not going to have any time, then yes, focus on pottying and then prompt the child through the rest of the actions for it.
And we should note too that in the beginning, are we just mainly focusing on the urination in the toilet? Are we doing both? Or are we I guess if we are focusing on the urination, the poop could just happen.
Yes, most of the cases I've worked with, we focus on urination first.
It does seem like the easier one.
And it happens a little more frequently.
Yes.
And for a lot of the children I've worked with, they'll have specific times, where they'll have a bowel movement, and that is a little more predictable.
Yeah.
And so if they are familiar with the toileting routine already, and they know that they're getting reinforced for that because this is what we're doing in the procedure, the bowel movements come a little easier.
Okay. If you've done the urination first.
That's what I've experienced.
Okay,
of course,
that's good to know.
I mean, every child's
I always thought
different.
that we did the pooping in the toilet. I'm just going to say that. I was trying to think of the PC term. Pooping in the toilet. I always thought we did it later because it was the harder of the two, but maybe I love the idea that it's easier to do it after you've already gotten the urination. It's just that much easier. Fabulous.
And I've had children that will be completely toilet trained to urinate in the toilet, but they still request diapers from their parents to have a bowel movement, which of course, removing the diapers and then providing a really, really effective reinforcer works every time.
Okay, we're going to talk more about that. Let's take a break, though, and we're going to come back, and we've kind of set the scene now and started to talk about the timer. So we're going to talk more about that and how you target this behavior to make it consistent and then reinforce the dickens out of it. More with Angela Persicke when we come back. Stick with us. Welcome back to Autism Live. Our special guest right now is Angela Persicke, and she is the Assistant Director of the Autism Research Group. It was a long night last night tonight. My lips still aren't working yet. But in any case, we're talking with her about toileting, how we can target this behavior and get consistency. And I really think, as we were talking during the break, it seems like that is the watchword, consistency. And I was mentioning before that when we did this with my son, we had one of those old-fashioned kitchen timers that had a big old bell on the back of it. And I honestly think that my son did this like a champ, and he did it very quickly, and the therapists that help us were absolutely wonderful because what they saw that they needed to do was put me and my husband on a timer. And the payoff for it was, too, that the timer, we would set the timer for, I think in the beginning it was 10 or 12 minutes, and the bell would go off, and everybody in the house would react. Wherever they were, the bell's gone off, it was potty time, and we would conga to the bathroom line, and the bell would go with us. He would get on the toilet, and he would watch us do it. We would set it to 5 minutes, and there would be, good, positive time. The bell would go off, whether he did it or not. He would get off the toilet. But I'll tell you what, I remember there was at least one day when therapists weren't there, and I thought, oh, I don't need the timer. I can do this without the timer. I can gauge, because it's so difficult to go like this, right? And it's so time-consuming and costs money to go like this to the timer that we already have. It's silly, really. And that was not a successful day. And then I was reminded, really, this takes 5, milliseconds. I can do that, and it keeps me functioning.
Exactly. The timer is really for the parent or whoever is implementing this, because that's all about consistency. And especially if you're having your child drink a lot of beverages throughout the day and you miss that 10-minute.
And it happens. You're on the phone and you get distracted or something else. You're having a wonderful interactive moment with your child and you're not hearing a bell go off, and all of a sudden you've set yourself up to not have success is what you've done.
Yes, and also accidents would probably occur as well, because we get distracted. We need our own prompts. We need prompts to continue doing what we need to do as well. So we've used buzzers as well, because they're more discreet. So sometimes the children become really reactive to the bell. And of course you don't want your child only knowing that the bell means potty.
Yes, absolutely. So, well, I think now we would do it on our phones.
Yes, exactly.
That's how we time is reading and stuff for homework and writing and stuff, so we would use the phone.
Yeah, and leave it on vibrate, and so it's more discreet.
Right.
But we talked a little bit about starting off with 10-minute intervals. And so oftentimes we will take data ahead of time, but we're so used to taking data.
Yes,
it comes
you guys like to take data.
Exactly.
But it's useful in all of the circumstances, and it's easily demonstrable how useful it is in this circumstance.
So we've sometimes taken data ahead of time to see how frequently the child is actually urinating throughout the day in his or her diaper. And then, if they're going every hour, sometimes we will go down to a half hour to start out with. But the more frequently you start out with just taking them to the toilet every 10 minutes, it will reduce the accidents. So we, anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, but of course you want more opportunities for success. You want them to achieve that toy or that snack or whatever it is that you chose for the toileting procedure as reinforcement. You want them to have the opportunity to get that as frequently as possible.
And I gotta say, the whole data taking thing beforehand, when you come home from the hospital with the baby, they ask you for the first week and a half, if not longer, your doctor asks you to take data about how often your child eats and how often they go to the bathroom, because they're looking to see the correlation between the two. And so in this instance, you're not having to write down every time your child eats, you're just having to write down every time they go to the bathroom. I think it's hard when a child's in a diaper because you're not always aware, so there's a little bit of a, but you start to get smart and savvy about it. And I'll tell you what else happens when you start to note that, is that you're watching your kid you see some of the behavior that they engage in right before they pee, which becomes a clue. And you don't notice it beforehand. I certainly didn't until you start taking the data. And then you go, he goes behind this chair when he wants to poop. How about that? I didn't notice that before.
Exactly.
He's already picked his bathroom.
And then you can also see if the child is even engaging in those behaviors, if they're even aware of the fact that they're, urinating in their diaper, because sometimes with the diapers so great these days, they don't really feel a lot. So it's not something that they think about.
Right.
And you want to get them to the point where they're thinking about it, which taking them out of diapers into big girl, big boy underwear will make them so they realize if they do have an accident, they know, like, oh, this is what happened.
Yeah. Is it helpful before you're taking the diapers away? One of the things we watched this week in the A Word, he hasn't started potty training where we're watching in the episodes yet, but he at one point is taking a poop, and so the therapist says, oh, are you pooping? And he asks for a minute because he's pooping, and then they go to see daddy afterwards, and the therapist says, oh, he was pooping. It's still in the diaper, but just calling attention to the fact that he was pooping. There's nothing bad about it. And the dad says, oh, good job, you're pooping. So languaging what's happening, is that a helpful thing?
Exactly. And I saw that episode too.
Isn't it great?
It was really great. And yes, making it so they are aware and reinforcing them when they can tell you or sign in some way that they're using the bathroom in their diaper is that's a great start to any toileting program, because then you can see, okay, the child is more aware of it, so maybe this is a good time to start. And
especially to making it like it's a good event. You're doing that. It's great because it's inevitable.
Exactly.
Our children are going to poop, and why not make it something that they feel happy and prideful and joyful about instead of ashamed and like it's something bad and well, let's help them out here.
And even once you're fully into this procedure and you have the child in their underwear, and if they do have an accident, you don't want to punish that.
Right.
Do not punish that. Just don't give them the reinforcer, of course, and then a lot of times you'll take them right to the toilet, the bathroom, and have them change their clothes and everything like that, and kind of prompt them through that if they don't know how. But that is, it's effortful to have to change their clothes and everything. So, and then have them sit on the toilet again.
Right. But it should be a non-event, is what you're saying. Yeah,
exactly.
So we're not in the bathroom and going, now if you just remembered to pee or tell mommy or do this or whatever, or you see how nasty and icky and whatever, it's just a non-event. You're taking the clothes off, putting the clothes on, not paying a whole lot of attention to it, not a whole lot of discussion, a non-event. Let them be feeling whatever, but we're not adding on to it. We're not shaming them for having done that. It's a non-event.
Yeah,
I love the idea, I think it's Evelyn Gould that says, look, when they do something good, we want it to be like we switched on the lights and a party happens. And when they don't do the thing we want them to do, it's like nothing happens. You're just sitting in the room and nothing's happening, but when good things happen, you switched on lights, the party happens. Okay, so let's go back to this idea of you set the timer for 10 minutes or whatever, because you've done a little bit of research about how often after drinking your child has to go to the bathroom. It's kind of fascinating. I had never thought about this before, and then you kind of notice it for yourself. Okay, so I drank this big thing. How long before I have to go to the bathroom. Notice it. It's an interesting thing.
And for children, it's a lot more frequently than, than adults. So
I think so. I was kind of amazed for adults. It's not that huge of a period of time too. If you seriously sit down and drink a bunch of liquid, you're going to have to go to the bathroom much sooner than I was aware of.
Within about 30 minutes.
Yes, it's kind of amazing how that works. And that shocked me. As a person walking the face of this earth, and I was like, didn't know that. In any case, I just never took the time to think about that before. So we set it for, let's say, 10, 12 minutes, whatever, and our timer, not their timer, our timer goes off, and we take them to the bathroom. We make that a happy, joyous event.
And we remember, you want to say, it's time to go potty, and have them say go potty, or use their card, or make the potty sign. Anything.
So that's an important part of it.
Very important.
We gotta, in whatever way, functional communication, time for potty. Okay.
Exactly.
So we go off to the bathroom, we put them on the toilet, and we reset the timer.
5 minutes, yes.
5 minutes. And we have all that reinforcing stuff that's in there. We have the videos so that they're not getting bored or antsy or anxious while they're there. Let's imagine that within that 5 minutes, the child urinates in the toilet. What happens then?
You have their highly, highly preferred reinforcer.
Okay.
So this is when that is used. So if it's a toy they've wanted for a long time, or a special movie, a snack, that's when that reinforcer is given.
The first time, have we already identified what that reinforcer is, or do we just give it to them when that happens? Have we talked about it beforehand and said if you pee you get the movie, or we just give it to them?
Yes, I've done both. It
depends on the kid?
Yeah, it depends on the child. How much language they have, but a lot of times we'll say it anyways. So go potty and you get M&Ms or something like that. Go potty and you get the robot.
Right.
And if they don't in that time period, it stays there, and then you go back and...
but let's still go back to the reinforcement though for a second. So you've put them on the toilet for the 5 minutes, and they did do it. You haul out the big guns reinforcing. And this is going to sound like a ridiculous question, but I'm like, we got to get it right. So do we immediately put the M&Ms in their mouth, or do we finish the whole toileting routine? Are they still on the toilet when they get it, or does it depend on the reinforcer and depend on the kid?
It always depends.
And that's important for us to know. Because we're all the time saying this is not a cookie cutter, right? Our kids are individual, and so for a kid who really needs immediate reinforcement, maybe you're putting the M&Ms in their mouth while they're still on the toilet and then finishing up.
Exactly. For other kids, we always say throw a potty party.
Yeah.
So everyone jumps up and down and is clapping.
Praise.
Yeah, you did it! High fives, and then they can pull their pants, and then, or you can help them pull their pants and then give them their toy.
So at the very least, immediately praising.
Yes.
But depending on the reinforcer, if it's ice cream and you don't want to deal with ice cream on the toilet, the praise and then the thing comes. But it's got to come. That's not when you go shopping for the toy.
No.
That you did beforehand. You give the toy as quickly as possible.
It's not okay. You did it, so we're going to get you a toy tomorrow. No. No. It's you have it right there immediately in your pocket on a shelf, and you give it to them. So so in that instance, they've peed on the toilet within the 5 minutes, and you praise. You have the potty, and you go back out and set the timer for 10 minutes again. Exactly.
And when the timer goes off, you go back in 5 minutes on. And you keep doing that. You don't stop after once. You just keep on doing that.
And this is what you're going to see most of the time. The very first time you take your child, sit them on the toilet for 5 minutes, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
So you go back 10 minutes, 5 minutes again. This is where it's really important to write down what is happening. So this is the time I took him to the restroom. This is what happened. Did he go? Did he not? Plus or minus, whatever you can do, and just keep track. And you'll be seeing by the end of the day that the frequency of actually going in the
Yes.
toilet has increased.
Okay. Okay. So, but back to the routine, because we don't stop doing it after 2 times.
No.
Like your child's having success, that's not the time to stop the routine. We're going to keep on doing the routine. But again, going back to the scenario, so you went the 10 minutes, you go in, you set the timer for 5 minutes, and as you said, most of the time in the beginning, you know, unless you're incredibly lucky, it's not going to happen that first time. So we don't praise because nothing good happened. We don't denigrate or nag or go over the rules or non-event. We, help them to still wash their hands, finish out the routine, pulling up the pants, whatever. Leave the bathroom, go out and set it for how long? Do we set it for 10 minutes? Do we set it for 8 minutes? Or it kind of depends on the child?
If you chose about 10 minutes, I think you could set it for 10 minutes.
Okay.
You want to stay, again, pretty consistent with that.
Okay. But if you see that consistently as you're charting this, that you've set it for 10 minutes and the child urinated at 8, then you can adjust it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So 5 minutes sitting on the toilet, you're done, you go out, you go back, you set it for 10 minutes, and the child has an accident in 8 minutes.
Right.
Then the next time you set it for 5.
Right.
And
Right.
go back.
Setting it for success. But you keep on doing it and keep on trying to get to the reinforcement.
Exactly.
That's really, I think, what's key is always trying to get to the reinforcement, because that's when they're going to want it. They have a vested interest in complying with whatever the lesson is. So,
And of course, if the child has an accident, that you reset the timer.
yes.
Because they went, of course.
And let's talk about that. Okay, so we said before, you go in the bathroom or whatever acceptable place that you have, and you make them a part of, or have them change themselves if they're old enough to do that, or at least make them a part of it so that they're aware of what's happening. And do we put them back on the potty in that moment before we reset, or we just reset? Depend on the child?
I've had both situations.
Okay.
I think you would be good with just resetting.
Okay. But for some kids, it's important for them to be reminded, put on the toilet. Okay. And it's so important, and I so appreciate that you're here and helping us to talk about this and to realize that it's not this cookie cutter, right? There are some things that it's important consequences, but there are variables in different kids, and there is a part of it where you're going to be able to use your instinct and apply these tools in a creative way to fit your child, your home, your rules, your child's physiological schedule and how they learn. So there is no hard and fast boom, 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 except for setting yourself up for success and following the consequences.
And timing it.
Timing it. Yeah, we got to get a little lucky there.
And this is why a lot of times we will track when the child is going just in their diaper beforehand, and maybe a day or two before, if you push fluids and have them drinking a lot, are they going every 15 minutes? Then you want to go more frequently than that. So and we usually say if they're going every 15 minutes, take them half the time.
Half.
So, yes,
because you want to have success.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the poop in the toilet, and then we're going to talk about nighttime, because nighttime's a whole other Megillah, right? So stick with us, more with Angela Persicke when we come back. Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're talking about toilet training with Angela Persicke. She is a BCBA. She is the Assistant Director of the Autism Research Group. Thank you so much for being here with us talking about this. We've talked about how to get ourselves set up for potty boot camp, how to tackle the urination in the toilet. So now it's time to move on to the poop. It's a little different, but you were saying that sometimes when you get the urination under control, that the poop isn't as difficult. But there are some considerations. I know some kids are aversive to the hole. They just don't want to let the poop go. And there's lots of different reasons why, right?
Yes.
Does it matter why? Do we need to try to get into their heads to determine what it is, whether it's the splashing or the open hole or letting go of something that feels like a piece of them? Does it really matter at the end of the day?
Not really. Not really. No matter what it is, if the child is really anxious about doing this in the toilet, of course, we're going to do the same things, make it the most fun experience they've had, and put their most reinforcing items in there with them. Movies are always great. And, when it comes down to it, the reason they're not doing it, unless it's of course a medical reason, which you want to go to your pediatrician about. But for the most part, we use the same principles.
We just pair it with something so reinforcing that it makes it worthwhile. And I got to tell you, that's what worked with my child. We took him to the store. He picked out the toy that he wanted. It went up on the towel bar. He went to reach for it, and we said, "You can have that right after you go poop in the potty." And he, he got that determined look on his face and got up on that potty, and as a friend of mine says, made a dolphin. It's a terrible euphemism for pooping in the potty. But, and then every day he would go to bed at night, and the rule was that as soon as he pooped in the toilet once, he could play with that toy the rest of the day. He would go to sleep at night. We would collect all the pieces, put it in its canister, put it back up on the towel bar, and he had to poop every day in order to have access to that toy. And that's the only time you can have it.
And that sounds absolutely perfect for what you'd want to do.
Well, we didn't invent it. We were told that by the people who study for autism and related disorders. It was not me who came up with that idea.
But that is the way to do it. And of course, having a bowel movement is less frequent. And once a day sounds pretty good. And so you won't use the exact same method where I'm only giving the toy right after for a certain amount of time and then putting it back, or giving whatever their reinforcer is. The way you did it, where if they get that for the rest of the day. That's great, but you have to remember to put it back.
Yes, you do have to remember. And actually, what's interesting to me is that we did have a period of time where we had to change it a little bit, because before that he'd only been going once a day, but we got into this little bit of a mode where he would go in and poop in the morning, and he would get the toy, and then he would go back and poop his pants later on in the day.
Oh, okay.
And then we had to change things up a little bit, because what he was realizing was it's just the first time of the day, so we did have to change things up. Just when you think you've outsmarted them, they outsmart you.
Exactly.
And then you have to change the rules.
Yes, and in all situations like that, you'll have to modify it based on your child and what your child needs. And if your child is going more than once a day or twice a day, you have to only give them the toy for a certain amount of time, or when we could start fading it out like you would do. I don't know if we necessarily talked about this.
We didn't talk about fading out.
Because you need to fade the procedure to longer periods of time once they're consistently going. And it would be the same for this situation too. You need to fade out how often they're getting the reinforcer. Now it's maybe every other time they get the reinforcer. If they don't have an accident all day long, then they get the reinforcer.
And that is in fact what we changed it to.
Yes, and systematically fading it, so don't just remove the reinforcer immediately. You may have to give the reinforcer incrementally throughout.
And the same thing with a timer. That, if you've been at 10 minutes and the child is getting great success, now you go to like 10 and a half minutes or to 11 minutes. You don't immediately jump to 15 or 20, that you go in small increments. Where you going? You got no place important. You got to just change it a little bit at a time. And by the way, once your 3 days is over, you can still be setting the timer, because when you go to run errands, the expectation that your child is going to be able to, before you've been on a timer where they got to go every 10 minutes, and now you're out and gone to the grocery store and you're gone for 30 minutes, the expectation should not be there that they're going to be able to make that leap. So the timer still goes with you.
And make sure you go to a place that has a restroom.
Absolutely.
Or a one nearby at least. You have to plan for that when you do start going out again, and you're not just in the boot camp mode. You're actually going back into the normal activities of every single day.
But even while we're talking about that, because one of the things we talked about today was generalization, that we have to plan for generalization, which means that you don't want your child to just be going to the bathroom in your toilet or in the one downstairs toilet. You want to start to practice in other toilets, like your friend's house, your grandmother's house, and the grocery store, because that is the reality.
Public restrooms are a big challenge for even a typical child child that's potty trained for years.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I know that they make these nice little foldable toilet seat
Yes.
covers that you can take with you, and those are really great for kids. And you get ones with pink princesses on them for girls, or cars for boys.
Absolutely.
And again, it's about making that environment reinforcing as well.
And what about having the reinforcer with you when you go to the public restroom?
Yeah.
So whatever it is, if it's the bag of M&Ms, you got to have it with you so that they go to the bathroom in the Target store, that they get the M&Ms.
And if you've already faded the procedure, so the child isn't getting the reinforcer until they've gone 4 times, in the toilet, and no accidents or whatever you have planned for that. But this is the first time going to a new store, and they'll be out in a public restroom. It doesn't matter if they just got the reinforcer at home.
Right.
You bring that reinforcer and give it to them in that environment.
Right, right, because you're up in the stakes there. Okay, because we're running out of time here, let's talk about the nighttime. And it's a whole other ball of wax.
It is.
Do we try to take it all at the same time, or do we really want to get the other stuff on board first and later on take the nighttime?
The other stuff on board first, and then take on the nighttime. And again, you need to pay attention to when the child is going at night.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of bed paddings out there and everything like that. And the natural consequence, of course, of wetting the bed.
Yeah.
But you probably don't even want to attempt that until the child is proficiently potty trained during the day. And typical children wear diapers at night for
a long
months,
time, right?
So
and pull-ups, a nice in-between stage, so it's seeming more like underwear, but keeps them protected and lets you be able to sleep longer. But at some point, you want to take on the nighttime toileting. It may be even 2 years down the road after your child has been potty trained. And what are some things that we can do to set ourselves up for success for nighttime toileting?
Giving rules. Is always great if the child is able to understand rules. So, no wetting the bed, and then we get this. And you may want to even start by, if the child is wetting the bed right in the middle of the night, waking them up right before that.
Which means another timer for us.
Exactly.
It means your timer's going off at 2:25 and you're getting up and walking your child to the bathroom. But I got to tell you, as horrible as that feels, that's a lot better than getting up at 2:45, changing a bed, and starting laundry.
And they have great bedding pads these days for this. And I believe there are even some that have an alarm.
Oh, alarm.
I'm not positive on that. I've heard something about them.
Okay, we'll look into that.
But maybe look into that. And but it's the same basic concepts: reinforcement, big reinforcers for not wetting the bed, and but for some children, at night, it's just if they're used to doing that and
sometimes they're
not aware.
Deep. Yeah.
If they're not aware of it, then it's going to be a problem. But you definitely want to get a hold of the daytime
first. But going back to the nighttime thing, again, if there is an accident, we're not berating, not humiliating, not nagging. We just, they got to stand up. If you got to change something, you got to change them, wash them up, whatever, that they're aware of it. It's uncomfortable for them too, but you're not pointing that out to them and getting them back in bed as quickly as possible so we can all get back to what's at hand. There's a story, though, that I heard on my local support group that I always think of now with nighttime toileting, because you said one of the best things is talking about different rules, and then a lot of times we're working on more than one thing at a time and getting the child to go to bed and stay to bed. And this one story that this mom told that changed my way of looking things, that they had said to him, now when you go to bed you have to stay in bed, and if you stay in bed you get this reinforcer, right? And he kept wetting the bed, and finally in a moment of just exhaustion she said, I just don't understand why you don't get up at night when you feel this. And he looked at her her and said, "You mean I'm allowed to get up out of bed?" And she said, "Oh, of course you're allowed to get up out of bed to go to the bathroom." He said, "Okay, I didn't know that." And that was the end of it. We got to be really careful what we say, and when we give the rules that we're thinking, because our kids, even though they may not have the language to tell you, they see things a lot of times from this 360 perspective that we are not. So, and she said, "I just wanted to go beat my head against a wall. How silly of me that we went through however much time of this, because I didn't think of it that way, but he did." So be clear with your rules. Clear with your rules and clear with your reinforcers.
And in that case, too, using a bedtime pass. So they get one bedtime pass, and they can use it for one thing, and then they can't get out of bed after that. That often works too, and a lot of times they won't even use the pass because they're saving it.
Yes.
So, but that's another thing that you can do for children who are constantly getting out of bed.
Okay. Now, for people who have questions, of course, we talked about Azrin and Fox, the book. What's the title of the book?
Toilet Training in Less Than a Day.
Okay. And if you want to know about studies, you can write to us, and we will hook you up with where you can go to get the studies. And if you have questions, you can continue to write into us. Angela's going to be coming back on a weekly basis on Thursdays, I believe that's what we're going to be doing. And so you can, ask a question and know that she'll answer it the next Thursday. So that's a great thing to do.